5, 4, we are live.
This is 2OF Entertainment.
And here we are. We're back.
We are. It's going to
But-
be. I think it's our last for
To
this.
say. Last show of 2025. Wow.
And we've had a great run this year. We're looking forward to next year as well.
It should be very fun. Yeah.
We've got. I'm booked solid now.
Yeah, you're a celebrity, Paul. Everybody wants to come on the show and talk about their art. And we're going to end this year with an honorary Jew. So I'm very excited being Jewish. So when we wish everybody a happy holiday at the end of the show, because Hanukkah and Christmas now fall for the first time in a long time, and the first day for both is on the 25th, then it's good. But this works serendipitously. So it's perfect.
Yeah.
I like it.
No.
So.
We have something very unique about today. It's a great inspiration for a lot of artists. I mean, we have Murray Van Halem with us today, who's a painter,
right?
And understanding that it's taken Murray. I don't know how to put this. He's prepared for 60 years to become an artist. We're going to talk to him about how he went about this. I mean, that's a long time of procrastination to become an artist. But holy smokes, you pick up
if you think about it and you think about it a little more, things happen. I think
he was busy somewhat in between all this.
Probably.
But we'll talk to him about that and why he became an artist. I think and they should see his work. Amazing. Just very good.
It's gorgeous stuff. I'm looking forward to hearing about it.
I'm glad he has taken that long to get here because, boy, can you imagine what it would have been if he would have started when he was 12? My goodness.
I know we'd have more to show.
We would be very full. We'd have a whole day book probably.
I would say like an 8-hour show, like 14 different parts of Murray's art.
Stop our bantering here and assumptions. We'll get Murray in here. And we'll talk
there you go. Murray, welcome to the show.
No, thank you. And thank you for having me. That's great.
It's our pleasure. Yeah. Well, you two enjoy speaking about Murray's art because it took him long enough to get there. So no procrastination here, just like you'll get into the show. And I'll see you guys at the end. Cheers, everybody.
Great. Good morning. Well, good day to you, sir. Thank you for joining us. I mean, this is a I was so inspired by you when we talked earlier, and I thought, I have to talk to Murray about how he got to where he's going. And I'm going, do not start from you can start from the beginning, but actually, you're going to jump ahead about 60 years on us here and say.
The line I have is, it took me 60 years before I could afford to become an artist.
Oh, there's the premise. Yeah, afford to be an artist is one of those. Yeah. Unfortunately, that's true. A lot of artists do struggle financially to just sit down and do what they want to do. They tend to. A lot of them have to paint what somebody wants them to paint. Say commissions and do things, or an art gallery. But now you pretty much paint what you want to paint. Is that?
I do. I do. I pretty much. Sometimes people ask me to do a commission, and I've done a couple portrait commissions, and I don't pursue it. But if somebody comes by and asks me, I can do that, sure. But by and large, I paint what I like to paint.
Yeah. So do you go to do the pop-up shows a little bit?
I do some studio tours. I've done a number of studio tours over the last 10 years. I've done the Images tour, done that studio tour, the Coldwater studio tour. I consider those kind of pop-up exhibitions, and I get invited to show at different places, which is really nice.
No, it's a luxury to have that, to be able to just paint what you love to paint, And so, where's the passion come from this? Like where?
Well, I've always wanted to be a painter, Paul. I've always wanted to do that. When I was in grade school and high school, I would be doodling on the side of my notebooks, and I wanted to go to the OCAD, or in those days it was called OCA, Ontario College of Art, and I didn't have the marks, and I didn't have the money, and I didn't have the portfolio either, and I had a brother who was a photographer, and he was 12 years older than I am, and I'd been helping him for a number of years, So I decided to become a photographer, and I was able to do that, and I had a very successful run at that. I started out as a large format commercial photographer, and then I worked for a newspaper for many years, and I had a great time. I loved working for newspapers, and it was a great foundation for me to do what I'm doing today. It's another art form. Instead of using a camera, I'm using brushes and oil, and that's been great. And that's so, life gets in the way. You know how that happens. I had two girls, and they had to go to university, and you can't do that I can't do that on an artist's income.
Yeah.
So I became a real estate broker for 25 years, and I managed to succeed in sending my girls to school, and then when I had the first chance I got, I retired and started painting. And that's the passion of it. It's something I've always wanted to do. Even when I was working on other stuff, I'd go to every exhibition, every art show that I could find.
Yeah. No, it's a great love of mine as well. I don't know if I've had the time to do like you're doing. I think I'm at a point now of just trying to clean my studio up because there's so much stuff in there, and try to get back. That's my goal. My January goal is to get back in my studio again. But I do love talking to artists, and I think this is and it's inspirational for a lot of people. I mean, when you kind of put and I'll call it your art as a career now a little bit. It's been the last 12 years or so. You've been
12, 13 years. 2011 I started.
Yeah. So pretty steadily painting your own. Is that kind of an everyday thing? And
well, I don't always put the brush to canvas every day, but certainly I'm involved with something every day.
Yeah.
There's all this peripheral stuff that you have to deal with. Online marketing, websites, social media, making submissions to juried art shows. So I'm doing something every day, and when I have time, I get outside and see what I'm going to paint next.
Unfortunately, we have all those hats that we have to wear.
Yeah.
And I think I did a count one time, and there was like 25 different things or so. Yeah. There's a stack of things that, as an individual artist, you actually work on, from accounting to bookkeeping to, like you said, social media to just everything that we have to do as an artist. But I'm going to get Stephen to start our first image up here, and then we can roll here along and just sort of. This one of your.
That one makes me smile.
Yeah, I love the flow of this thing. I mean, I can see a little bit of this photography influences in you a little bit, because you have to design on your feet when you're a photographer. You mean?
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. And when you're in the darkroom, you're making design decisions with every print you're making too.
And in those days, they weren't digital. They were dealing with film, and you had either 12 shots or 36 shots on a 5mm, and you had to make the best of each shot. But I think people see how this maybe shows up in some of your work, your design skills. Do you use that? Do you feel the sense that came back to you when you start painting?
It did.
Design on your feet when you don't have to put that tree in there because it's there, for instance, right?
Funny you should mention the design. I had a number of instructors, and one of them was Tony Bianco, and he said, here are the three pillars of painting: shape, value, and color. Shape is the design of your painting, and there's value, the range of darks and lights, and then there's color. I really, really think about my design before I start painting, and I do most of my design work in camera or on a sketch before I do. Well, by the time I start painting, I know exactly what it's going to look like, or I think I know what it's going to look like.
Sometimes. And hopefully you leave leeway for movement.
Yeah, sometimes I'm surprised.
Sometimes it forces it upon yourself that you.
But this particular image really shows the photographic influence, because you're coming to the foreground. I brought the foreground into the painting. normally, that if you're doing plein air, you probably wouldn't paint that much of a foreground. So this is what you see on your in your lens if you're painting from photograph, and also it's probably a wide angle lens that I use, and that's why there's so much stuff at the bottom of it.
Right. Yeah. No, it's yeah. It almost feels like it's an aerial shot of
Yeah.
or a big vista that you're looking over a valley, and you feel this. It really brings you into the image, right? You really want to move from the front to the back, and I can see how the light is kind of bouncing on the landscape in the back. You know, it doesn't.
Yeah.
It's not, you know, you can see the cloud cover has created these lovely patterns that are in the background that move your eye around. But yeah, no, it's and then we go to this. So you do landscape and
Cityscapes.
portraits and some cityscapes, I guess. Is
Yeah.
that your love of those three kinds of imagery that you like to work with?
I like to work. I've migrated to cityscapes more than landscapes in the last few years. This being very typical of the kind of cityscapes I'm doing. And I do portraits too, but I do portraits for my own satisfaction, really, just as a skill building activity, because I do feel if you can do portraits, you can do anything, and it's a great way to practice your skills. But this cityscape, and I find them very exciting. I think instinctively when you start painting, when you first start painting, you start painting rocks and trees because that's what's around you, and that's usually when you're in a workshop, that's what they give, that's your subject matter given to you. And then after a while, you start expanding and you start painting other things. And maybe after a while, you start putting a few buildings in among your rocks and trees. And then later on, you can develop something like this and start focusing on what's in the building, who's in the building, and who's around the buildings. And that was my progression really from landscape painting to cityscape painting. And I love doing it, and I enjoy and people really like them too. They gravitate towards them. They find them exciting to look at.
How big is this piece, for instance, that we're looking at?
That piece, that's a very small piece. That's a 12 by 12.
Okay. Yeah.
But I've done cityscapes up to 24, 36.
So, and I'll give you credit to this. There's the looseness in your work, yet there's structure. I mean, a lot of times when an artist starts off early in their career, they're so tight with everything. You know, you got small brushes, and yes, they might know their colors by then and do a few things, but they're still trying to manipulate.
They manipulate
detail that was there. Do you paint stuff from memory a little bit? So what you like the feeling that you get, like say you're on a street in Montreal and you see a feeling, do you go back to the studio and paint?
Yes, I do, and I interpret, and sometimes I'll take a picture of what I see just to get the surroundings, more where the structure of the buildings are, and then try and get the people into it and moving the way they should be moving, and put motion in the paintings, have them lean forwards or have them with their arms out a bit so you can see that there's a stride there. I like doing that. I just want to go back to something you said, if I may, Paul, about the progression of painting. When you first start painting, you're painting. You try to put in much detail, and you're using small brushes. Before COVID, I used to teach a lot, and occasionally when I would see that among my students, I would actually confiscate their brushes, and hand them a big brush and say, "Here, try this for a while, see how that goes." And they loved it. It was remarkable what you can achieve with a big brush. Most of that is done with most of that little painting that we're looking at is done with a 1/2-inch flat brush. So.
It's a favorite brush of many artists.
Yes,
you have to give validity to your student by saying you can do this. You can take one away, give them. I've done that as well in workshops and say bigger brushes.
Bigger brushes. Give them the tools. Give them the tools for success. That's what
it's not that you want everyone to paint the same, but when you do a workshop, you want them to experience things that they normally wouldn't do on their own in the studio. That's why you take a workshop. You want to learn things. And so, have you done workshops as well? You do things?
Oh, I do workshops every year.
Oh, yeah.
Every year I continue to do workshops. My favorite is the Halliburton School of the Arts. I go there once a week or once a year for a week. And I do portraits there. That's all I do when I do. And the reason I'm doing it is because they have live models, and that's great because
that's exactly, drawing from the model really does loosen you up, and if you can draw the figure in the model, you get a sense of what life's really about a little bit. Just the light, form, and interaction with a person, another live person, is really important. What would you advise, an artist starting late in their career, for them to do? Where would they start? Like, say they've had a full-time job all their life. They finally decide they're going to retire in 1 or 2 years. Should they start taking classes and do a few things?
Yeah, I would. That's I started with a workshop at Halliburton with John Anderson, and it was introduction to oil painting and plein air or something like that. And I did it for a week, and I came away and I was just over the moon. I thought, yes, I can do this. I was so elated, and I really suggest you immerse yourself as much as possible. I know that when you start, you have other things in life, but if you plan to paint and you want to paint and you want to be a serious painter, the only way to get there is to paint a lot and just keep doing it. And yes, you will make mistakes, and yes, you will be disappointed, and sometimes things won't work out the way you will, but do it again and try it again. Yeah. And at the end of the day, you'll start seeing your skills develop, and you'll start seeing you'll start producing really good paintings, and that people will like, and that's the most rewarding part. All of a sudden, it's like, wow, you've just turned the corner. Somebody actually likes this painting. Wow, that's great. It's such a great feeling.
Yeah, it's nice when other people like your work, but it's probably the best when you like your own work. You finally get to a stage where you say, you know what, I nailed it. Like this one. Yeah. So you don't even want to sell it. You want to put it up on the wall and paint another one along that same vein where you're really happy with those types of work.
This little painting that you have up, Paul, is a funny story about that painting, and it's really about it exemplifies progression. And that when I first did this painting, I did the whole painting, but I did not have that red truck in the front. And I looked at it for a year, and I thought, there's something missing in this painting. I don't know what it is. It's lovely. And then I thought, aha, I know what's missing. There's a focal point, a spot of red. So I put the truck in, and sometimes you just have to look at a painting for a year to see what's missing.
What do you title this? What's the title of this one?
I call this is another good story. I call this Mr. and Mrs. Gray. I have a friend of mine, and his parents used to have a pickup truck. And one day they were living out in the country, and I was behind them in their pickup truck in my car. And I saw Mr. and Mrs. Gray sitting right next to each other on the bench seat in the pickup truck. I'm going back 40 years. They still had bench seats in trucks then. And they were quite elderly at that time already. And so having the two sitting in the truck like that just reminded me of Mr. and Mrs. Gray. So that's what it's called.
And that's what's lovely. You put those experiences that you have in your life, and you can put those into visuals. Yeah. And again, it's a story. So this picture really, I think it gives it kind of a period at the end of the sentence. You finish the sentence, like you say, when you found the right structure to put in on the road, it finishes the story. And it's great when it comes from your heart and from your mind, and you say, you know what, you probably painted this baby with that in memory, but you didn't know what to put in there, right? And when you find it, it's that wow moment. It's so
yeah, good.
I love it. I love it when that happens. It doesn't happen every day. I'll tell you, as a
I
painter, you
know.
know, those aha moments are occasional. And when you come back from in the studio, your wife is looking at you and say, what are you so happy about? Or what do you got that smile on your face? And he just shrugged and he's like, okay, well, maybe I made some forward motion today out there, and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
those
You know,
moments.
Leonardo da Vinci said, paintings are never finished; they're just abandoned. Right?
We say that, I'm finished with a few paintings. I tell you, to a point where I don't just paint over them.
Well, that happens
So
too.
that part too. We get a few of those, and I have a few ready for a bonfire.
Yeah,
But
that's good. Yeah, that takes a lot of fortitude to put them in a bonfire. Congratulations if you can do it.
there are points. We have workshops occasionally, annually, and we encourage people to bring their bad ones. And a little bit of scotch and a fire, and we sit and talk about them, and you throw one on the fire. You're right. It's quite it makes your heart kind of jump a little bit when you throw something that you'll never ever get back again. You say, you know what? And other ones will talk about the work. Oh, I'll take that work. No, you can't have it. You gotta, this is destined for eternity somewhere. But anyway, tell us. Look, and that's not a fire, but this is a lovely, lovely industrial piece. Can you tell us a little bit about?
Yeah,
You,
that's
you
that.
paint?
Well, I live in Dundas, which is just out of Hamilton, and Hamilton, of course, is a steel town, and you can drive around Hamilton and see this scene pretty much any time of day, any time of year. These mills go 24/7. So
Yeah.
this painting is, this is from a vantage point in Burlington, but it's when I did it, I gave the smoke stack, not the stacks, but the smoke billowing out from the stacks. I gave that some thought, like what color should I use? And I used the prettiest colors I could find, and this is the result of it. And I'm very pleased with it. And I guess other people are pleased with it too. I was happy to discover that this painting is going to be at the Ontario Legislature for the duration of 2025. They have a dining, and I came across this call for artists, and at the 11th hour, I think I submitted it the day before the deadline, and I just threw it in, and they called me and said, yes, we'd like to have it. So that's where you can visit it in 2025. It'll be there in the dining room. Apparently, there's a dining room in the legislature.
Oh,
So,
nice.
yeah. So,
Yeah, it's nice to find new audiences for
Yeah.
your work, and some of those do come from call for entries, and some it requires you to go knock on doors and figure out how to do that. Maybe we'll talk about how to do some of those kind of things in the new year. But it's a lovely piece because the light on smoke or light on steam. I mean, it's kind of what Monet was doing in his day. Like you see
Yeah.
a lot of the fog on the Thames, and some of those you see the towers coming through and the light, and it was really about the light. It's really about, and it's a very, very emotional painting. This is very emotional industrial piece. It could be in a huge amount of negativity to it, but it has positive aspects to this.
Yeah, it's something that people probably won't hang in their living room.
Well, you never know. You get
never know.
one of those iron workers probably just love it.
Yeah. Yeah, one of the reasons I'm very pleased with it is because it goes against everything that other people paint. It's very few people do industrial stuff like this, and I find it very rewarding. And to have it come out as successfully as it did was very rewarding.
Yeah, it's kind of loose structure, but you know what it is, right? It's one of those. You don't have to paint every window, door,
No.
and the grime of the place. But in Regina, they have an IPSCO plant which does smelt metal, and it's just a big monster sitting outside of the north side of the city, and it belches black smoke out over everywhere. Depends the way the wind's blowing.
Go and visit it. You may be rewarded by. There's lots of stuff to paint there. That's for sure.
Yes, and if you're a plein air painter, it's probably a great thing. But standing out in the plains in Regina in the winter with 30 below, actually tomorrow will be 30 below or something like that. You don't really want to be doing that. You got to figure out how to do that one. Usually from your vehicle. A lot of people paint from their vehicles.
Yeah.
Or they'll take photos, I guess.
I sketch from my vehicles. I do that.
Yeah. No, it's good. And then we go to this happy.
It's a happy painting. Yeah.
They're very happy. The poppies, I guess they are.
Yeah, they are. That's a 24 by 30, so it's a sizable painting. I don't know what inspired me to do it. Actually, I can tell you what inspired me to do it. Very close to us, I live in Dundas, and just outside of Dundas, between here and Burlington, is Royal Botanical Gardens, and I'm a member of it. And I go in there, especially in the spring when they have all the blossoms are out and the lilacs are blooming and the poppies are blooming and the irises are going, and there's so much inspiration there. And I saw this cluster of poppies sitting there in among other plants, and I thought, wow, I could do this. And I've done a few floral paintings, not a lot, but the ones that I do seem to work out well, and people like them. And so I still have this one. I guess people didn't like this well enough to put it on their wall, but
you just haven't found the right person.
I just haven't found the right person yet.
Yeah, it's one of those things. It resonates with different people, and I hate to make analogies or assumptions, but it has a very Van Gogh feel about it, and in the color palette, and I think the florals, and I think that, and in the greatest admiration for you for that. I think that's. But I really love it in that you didn't paint every petal.
No. I used to. I'll tell you, most of those flowers were done with a palette knife. Just so you know.
Okay.
And you get great results from that.
Yeah, I was never much of a palette knife. I painted early in my career a little bit of palette knife, but I didn't. I prefer a brush for some reason.
Well, I do my the underpainting and the structure of the painting. I do with a brush, and then kind of finish it up with a palette knife after that.
Yeah, if you want the texture and the folding of paint one over the other, and you're really happy with the impasto feeling of. Now, do you paint oil acrylic or what are you painting?
This is all oil paint. I've never painted in acrylic. Some of my students when I was teaching would paint in acrylic, and that's fine. But I'm an oil painter, and I love it.
Yeah, no, it's just got to watch the fumes and.
Well, with the new products, they don't smell. Although old mineral spirits can, if you open up the jar of that, you can smell it. But,
there's some new gambling stuff out now that you can use that is pretty odorless. Still in the air. It's nice to have some ventilation. I always encourage artists to be safe when working with those things. You got an air exchanger or something, or a fan or something to blow the things away. But it's I've always loved oil in that it's juicy, rich, it folds nicely, and it blends nicely, and it stays wet a while. You can work with it.
It stays wet a while, and you can work with it and maneuver, and it's malleable. You're talking about staying safe. Here's a tube of cadmium yellow light. The cadmium, as we know, is a heavy metal. And it's in the tubes, and I don't think you can even buy the large tubes of cadmium anymore. You have to buy small ones now.
And don't take the lids off with your teeth. Yeah. I've seen them trying to. They don't have pliers with them when it gets welded on there.
But here's something. Okay, I don't know. I'm just speculating here, but I'm figuring if I started painting at 60. And I am now 73. I don't think that tube of paint's going to kill me, but it might. Maybe if I started at 20 or 18, 15, it might. So
you might get a little. Well, you do some crazier paintings. Maybe I don't know what happens when you get a little bit of lead in your system.
I don't know either. Well, I don't
think it's I don't think it's a good thing.
We're not experts, no.
No. Well, we hopefully listen to our the manufacturers and history. But I love the light in this piece. So did you travel here?
Yeah, we traveled. My wife and I have traveled extensively over the years, and this was from the Middle East. This is Jericho, which is in the West Bank. And what I like about this one is you can just kind of feel the heat coming off the buildings. It's a very hot painting and a very simple painting, but it certainly conveys the mood of that region.
Right. Yeah.
And it's a small painting. It's 12 by 16, but it's I like that one too.
Yeah. No, I remember seeing some early paintings by even Winston Churchill, who painted, well, painted plein air mostly, but he painted a number of from Egypt and some of the other areas. And it's just the light is so light.
It's a different light, and you need a different palette.
Yeah, it's a very arid light.
Yeah.
And I love this, not just the blue sky. I mean, that's part of it. It's really that underpainting and the overpainting, right? The glazing that can happen with a piece. You need to do that to bring that vibrance to the feeling, right?
Yeah.
But it's difficult. Again, I can see the photography in you a little bit. The dealing with the vertical structures and then the lay of the land below it. So you've got some depth, yet it's still indication. Like you've indicated doorways with in a gray. There's a gray that lays on there that picks up, and there's a nice sense of light. Little blue top on the dome there, and and I'm looking. Oh, that's blue. There's blue and green. There is some greens in there, but they are muted greens. They're not these really bright greens, and because I guess it's part of the light and the color of the trees that are part of.
Everything is dusty in the Middle East. Everything. There's always this layer of
even the tourists. Okay,
the tourists get dusty. Yeah.
It's a lovely piece. I just
good. Oh yeah.
We'll jump to some of your portraits. You said you mostly you paint portraits for yourself.
I do.
Just love to do them. And can you talk to these two pieces? They're not the same. They're not the same guy.
No, they're not the same guy. The guy on the right, I was experimenting with background. So one of that's Stevie on the right. Stevie passed away a few years ago. He lived up the road from me, and he would help me shovel snow and put my dock in and out and that kind of stuff. And he was always hanging around. So I painted him a number of times. And this time, I painted before I started. I painted the whole canvas in cadmium red light, and then I started painting over that, and that was my initial color, and I left lots of it in the background, and then so I've done a few of him, and he is a very intense kind of guy, so and that intensity really comes through. And the one on the left, I think I just painted that from a photograph I got from an old book somewhere. Other than that, but it's very much in that John Singer Sargent style, and it's a fun painting.
Two really different palettes and two different ways of looking at painting. Painting on a colored surface really changes your perspective things. Like you actually anticipate little pieces of that coming through. It's very I guess in the day it was contemporary to do that. The group of seven type of thing happening, where they would paint a background out and then go in and paint on top of that. Just kill that white page, get rid of the white canvas, and move on. And the other one is more subdued, the grays and the blacks, and I think playing with the grays, the warm and cool grays, you can create some amazing paintings. Especially when you add a little bit of color to it, it just sings.
One of the things I do with my portraits is I quite often just what I do is I take the one on the left is a 16 by 20, and I painted the canvas first with a number 5 gray acrylic and put that down, and then painted oil on top of that, which you can do. And when you have that number 5 gray sitting there, Yeah, you can leave lots of it behind, and the colors really speak more loudly than if you have
Well,
other
yeah,
colors.
I think you can focus on what you're painting. You don't have to worry about the background anymore.
That's right.
You really
You
focus
can
on
read
the
it.
portrait, right? The
Yeah,
portrait becomes
yeah. You can
the
just leave it.
dominant thing. It's not a landscape, it's a portrait. So
Yeah. Oh, those are hot paintings. They're hot yellow, yellow, yellow.
this is the hot palette that we put together here.
Yeah.
So tell us the two different. One's a sketch on the one on the right.
The one's on the right is a sketch. I think I think I did that on. I didn't do that on that yellow paper. I manipulated that just to put that sepia tone into it.
Yeah.
But the one on the left, I think my background is uh, yellow, cad yellow, medium cadmium yellow. Painted. No, you know what? I know what it is. The background is red iron oxide, and that comes through at the bottom right corner, and it comes through in her face a lot, and it gives you that nice beige look. That color of beige would pop through sometimes. You'd see that if you see in a group of 7 landscape, you'll see that a lot, but only because I think they were painting on linen, which wasn't bleached. So
I
that
think they paint. Yeah, on the field they paint on panel too. They
yeah,
paint
yeah.
panels.
So yeah, so when and then the other color, the other one is just the gray and a little bit of. I think I have a little bit of red in there, not much.
Yeah. So is this a sketch after Leonardo kind of style that you're
The
doing?
one on the left,
Yeah, no, yeah.
the one on the left actually is no, it's from a live model at the Halliburton School of the Arts, and
It feels very Leonardo-y, the how he sketched on they were yellowed paper.
yes,
I think,
yeah,
different
I should
things.
do it more often. I don't do it often enough.
Kind of looks like a fun style, dealing, uh, drawing from the model. But
Yeah.
I can see influences there. But it's nice that you can draw from the model because not every artist does that.
And people will say not everyone art does it. Sometimes you can paint from photographs. You can do a portrait from a photograph. People say, "Well, I'll sit for you," but after about 10, 15 minutes, they start fidgeting and they want to get up, and so at least when you go to these workshops that I do, the models are professional models, and they'll sit and they're good, and when they come back to their pose, the pose is exactly the way it was before, and that's the way it should be.
Yeah, no, it's nice to be able to paint other people, friends and things. And you're right. It's um, you somewhat feel you don't have the control over the thing a little bit because you're being amenable to them, make them comfortable, and they'll sit as long as they sit. So you really have to get the gesture down quickly.
Yes, you do.
Wow, because they, like you said, they fidget and move around, even though you tell them, sit there. Especially if it's just a head and shoulder turning left and right and listening to this and talking, which drives me crazy sometimes.
Yes, yeah.
And,
I don't want to hear you talk.
yeah.
And if it's a friend, you can't tell them not to talk. So.
Well, what you do is you put that roll of duct tape on the little table next to them. They say, "Well, what's that duct tape for?" And you just give them a look.
Yeah. Oh yeah, another hot painting.
This is a very beautiful, voluminous painting. So in other words, the image is dominating. It's I don't know how big the panel is.
It's a 16 by 20.
Yeah,
No, it's 1824. It's 18 by 20.
scale, but I love this. It's huge in the space, yet it's not. And I think I'm trying to figure this out. I was looking at it the other day, and I said, it's the background. The background is absorbing it and taking it back into the background. It's it's got a strong diminishing line. The boat's going back, but it's the sky that is helping it so much because it's of that same red palette, red, and then you got the purples and violets that are happening back there. If you had a blue sky on there, it wouldn't be about the boat anymore.
No,
It's
no.
And I love the fact that Hamilton is a port city,
Yes, it is.
and I don't get to experience that. And I have only 2 transportation methods where I live. I don't have the ocean or a major lake that is a connector to the ocean.
Yeah.
You get ships of this scale. Look at the size of that man. I mean, you really have to be. Give me that feeling of the presence of a boat on a small. Really, if you had this thing as an 8-foot painting, that's one thing. But to give you the scale and feeling in a smaller painting, the same feeling, I think it's that. Kudos to you. I mean, it was a nice piece.
When I was living in Georgian Bay, I was living just outside the town of Midland, and Midland is also a port town, and these Lakers come in to Midland from Thunder Bay, bringing grain into the granaries. That's where I started painting these big boats, and I continue to do it because I've moved to a town that's also a port town. That's where I started, and the other nice thing about this painting is, and the ships are all red. The ones I paint, anyways, they're all red, and Canada steamship lines, their hulls are red, and as soon as you put red in a painting, you're going to attract attention. So it's a natural subject matter for me, I should say.
Yeah. No, it's nice. It's a nice presence. That little, the green on there on the mast too, on the crane.
Yeah.
It really complements with the red tones. You need that. Like, it really sings. It's got, and it picks up in those little portholes in the side of the boat.
Yes.
Little new, even the trim around the boat. The loose edge.
Yeah.
Painting. And you know what, Murray, you've done well. I mean, for a guy that's only been painting for 12, 13 years, you've been thinking about it for 60.
Yeah. Well, people say, how long have you been painting? I tell them 73 years.
Yeah. That's a good one. That's the way we all should be. Well, you really are. Throughout life, whether you're, whatever you're doing, you're still organizing things in your mind, and sorting things out.
Yeah.
And then you go from boats to laundry.
Yeah.
I think an artist should go paint laundry for a while. I think you should do it. I mean, it's there. I mean, you don't see as many clotheslines anymore, but when you have an opportunity to paint, it's I don't know what it is. There's a freedom feeling.
Yeah.
Painting linen. Excuse me. The painting linen or laundry that's not specific to, say, underwear or such, but I think it's because it's these white masking shapes that mask out, and you have to look around it and see where things are to make sense of the background. I think we talked about this a little bit previous to the show, and a number of Alex Colville of the day and a number of other ones have painted, and it really became a lifestyle of the day. Can you talk to this piece and the laundry and what it means to you?
I've done a couple of laundry paintings, and one of the things I find about the laundry, I did one, and it had a building in it with lots of laundry, and it just kind of exemplifies the openness and the airiness of your surroundings. This particular field was nearby, and there was this big patch of perennial. There was a perennial garden in front of it, and this laundry was hanging around in the back, and I'm thinking, wow, and it just made me. And the view kind of went on forever. It was open. It was wide open, and that laundry just exemplifies that openness. Because now, where I live now, you can't hang laundry outside anymore. You're not allowed to. And I'm sure when Christopher Pratt was painting it, they were living out in the country, and laundry was everywhere. Now it's not so much. And it also harkens back to my youth. My mother used to hang laundry out too. It made me feel good. And my wife will tell you that anything that dries outside smells better when it comes back in too.
It's amazing.
And it conjures up all these memories for me in this particular painting. So I'm happy with it. I still have it, but maybe I'll keep it for a while.
Yeah, I think the Christopher Pratts of the day, they actually set those shots up.
Oh, probably did.
They, hired a model. They do whatever they needed to get what they wanted, the feeling. So they didn't really worry about that. I remember as a kid, even hanging out, they'd hang laundry in the winter.
Oh yeah, and they would freeze.
And these sheets would freeze solid, right? And I was a gang of us running around, and we had our football. And I'm saying the laundry was probably old anyway. Anyway, the football went right through the laundry,
Like
right through the sheet. So the sheet must have been pretty old to start with.
Must have been old, and it was brittle.
It got frozen up. That ball went right through the sheet. Boy, did we take off!
Yeah, when people see this, when people see this painting, they have their own story with it too, just like you. Yeah, it's a fun painting.
Yeah, and I'll only share one more. The only place we really like it here as well, we don't have laundry outside anymore. But if you're in the country, a lot of times, and I was always thinking of doing some paintings of this. Just I did a few drawings. It's a lot of the stuff that gets caught up in a barbed wire fence.
Oh yeah,
and it's in the wind.
Yeah,
and some of that does similar things to this, and it could be an old plastic bag.
Yeah,
but it gives you a sense of wind and air and.
Yeah.
Are you much of an environmentalist in what you paint? Do you have
not in my painting. In my life, I like to, we do. I don't know. I drive a car. Am I an environmentalist? I don't know. I can't say I'm a militant environmentalist, but
yeah, there's a lot of artists. Yeah,
I certainly like to watch my P's and Q's when I'm with my recycling and how I do things and how I dispose of things and so forth.
I guess I was referring to more in your subject matter in your works, and some use their work as a voice.
No,
for their conviction for that.
No, not when I'm painting big ships. So yeah,
this is a lovely piece. Where is this actually located? This one.
It's downtown Toronto, and it's called Sugar Beach. And 10 years ago, Rob Ford, who was the infamous mayor of Toronto at the time, created. It was built on his watch, and it's an old pier that they put in sand, and they put up the umbrellas, and it's right next to the Redpath Sugar Refinery. And the ships come in to the refinery, and they bring in raw sugar from Brazil and from Cuba and so forth. It's going to be processed at the Redpath Sugar Mill. So, and people come down from the lunch break and just sit there and in the summer, and they tan and they eat their lunch. And I really like the juxtaposition of this industrial background and these pretty little umbrellas at the front and people sitting around.
Yeah, I love that, the joy in the work, the content. No, it's a lovely piece. I love the feeling of that large ship. It's kind of a contradiction.
It is. It's a total contradiction. The ship and we see ships from afar. You have to go to a mill. It's rare that you see a ship that at such close proximity next to a beach. Like, how crazy is that, right?
And it's huge.
It's huge. The ships are huge. Yeah. And there's another one. Yeah, that's the I can't remember. It's that's from Midland, and that's going on to Lake Superior. That ship, shuttling back and forth between Thunder Bay and Midland, bringing grain in, especially in the spring or in the fall when the crops are off.
This feels very watercolor-like, and it
does.
It's just the light nature of the light glazings of your oils.
It does look like a watercolor now that you mention it. I never thought of it that way, but I can see that.
There's a nice looseness. You've done watercolor at all? Have you done anything like that?
I started with watercolor, but the fatality rate was so high, I thought. Yes. And then the other thing, when I very first started painting, I thought, I'll try pastels. I was painting with a friend of mine, and she had a full set of pastels. She says, why don't you use them? I said, okay. And I started with pastels. And I thought, well, I'm just going to go over to oil because it seems to be, it goes faster. And the results are very similar in some respects. The pastel just didn't work for me in the way I paint. I'm a very loose and fast painter, and that didn't work for me. And watercolor, like I said, the fatality rate was high, and I just stopped doing it.
Yeah.
And
once
I started with oil, I did not look back.
I've always said if you can paint watercolor, you can paint anything.
Yeah, it's true.
Because you've learned your glazing colors and all those things, and maybe a little bit of patience, waiting for things again to dry at a certain stage. And oils being the same thing, you have to wait at certain stages for glazing and doing different things. But
most of my painting is done alla prima. I have a motto in somewhere here in my studio. It says, "Life is short, paint quickly," and I do, and oils really allows you to do that, alla prima. And if sometimes when you screw up and you can't, and you think, oh, I really need to change that, or you need to build up the values, or you need to build up the colors, well, you just let it dry and you can go right over it again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it can be very forgiving, but I've seen a lot of people struggle with oils as well.
Yeah.
Your mind has to be in the right mindset to do the different mediums. And I've used pastels, and I always like pastels, but I always use thinners with them.
Okay.
And the thinners will melt them. They blend and melt beautifully. They can look like a watercolor or an oil.
I need to try that.
If you can work with an oil stick, it's again very nice. In other words, you could go sketching in your car with 2 or 3 oil sticks and a little bit of thinners.
Yeah.
And you got a painting. It's beautiful.
I have to try that. I have a few oil sticks here that I've had for 10 years. I've never used. So
just put them on and give it a try, because I think you don't need every color. And it said if you're doing a sketch, and they're easy to put away in a box and roll them up and go. This piece is I'm gonna say is more lush in a way, and I think it's just this deep foreground of greens and siennas that are mixed, and your deep sharper edges. Maybe that's what it is, Murray. The foreground really has a nice strong feeling. I love it. It's this nice slate grays.
Yeah.
Is this a special building of some kind that you painted?
Yeah. On Highway 400, I drove past it. Highway 400 is a main highway that runs from Toronto right up and goes up to Thunder Bay. Really, becomes Highway 69. And there's a building that's clad in tin, and I think it has a historical designation on it or something. And I stopped and took a picture and did some sketches of it, and this is the result of it. Now, if you were to drive past that building today, you probably wouldn't see it because of all the greenery that's grown up around it. Or I don't even know I haven't been up that way in a while, so I don't even know if it's there. So
many of our structures are changing.
They are.
They're getting knocked down and replaced with condos and whatever else. So there's not a lot of historical stuff being left on the prairies. I know anything with wood is deteriorated completely. They're gone.
Well, what is biodegradable, and then it falls apart.
Yeah.
But just coming back to this painting, it's one of my very early paintings. I probably did that 10 years ago, and but one of the things I really like to do is have a bold foreground in front. And I don't know why I do that, but I do, and it allows people to kind of climb over that thicket in the front, and then move themselves into the painting. It's a habit that I've used and a tool that I use in lots of paintings, and this is one of them. So I haven't changed the design of paintings over the years. Just and you're right. There's the brush stroke is much more detailed than I would do today.
Yeah, I like the word you use, tool. Like it's a tool you use, and I think the artist does go back to their, what tools do you have, and one of them being, a design tool. A color palette tool is a tool.
Yeah.
And understanding when you go out, what tool am I going to take with me today? The fall is different than the spring.
Yeah.
A city scene is different than say a landscape. And sometimes you take the wrong tool with you and you get another experience. Good or bad. Sometimes it's just.
Sometimes.
I remember showing up one time at a workshop and I forgot all my brushes. I could not believe it. And you're out there and you say, okay, what am I going to paint with? And you get sticks and a bunch of different stuff. It's nothing I kept, but it was more of a, I won't forget my brushes next time. But at least I had to. I was there for 2 or 3 hours plein air painting, and I had a bunch of sticks and a bunch of different things. I say, well, I had to figure something else out. Sort of like not showing up with your favorite colors that you like to use, and workshops do that. The instructors say, we're now painting with these colors today, and you go, I've never painted with those. What are you going to do with those colors? And it forces you to mix your colors and find new palettes and experiment. So I really encourage people to do workshops with artists that encourage those kinds of things.
Well, one of the things I do is I have a very limited palette. I only use 5 colors, I think. I use ultramarine blue, cadmium red light, cadmium yellow, and maybe red iron oxide, and orange if I really want a strong orange, and white. That's it. And I've used that palette now for 13 years.
You can pretty well mix everything with that, Murray.
I can, and I do. And the other nice thing is that if you ever want to go, if you come back to a painting 6 months or 6 years later, you know what you used. You don't have to wonder what color that is.
Yeah, no, is this kind of looks like a signature piece for you? I mean,
it is. Yeah.
You love painting. You love painting this kind of thing.
I do. If it's big and it's red, I like painting it. That includes ships, and that includes streetcars.
I think this resonates with a lot of people that live in a city.
They do.
It feels city-like, and it's still romantic in a way.
You're right. When people look at it, they'll start telling you a story about their streetcar adventure, or about, I used to live in this area and the streetcar would go by all the time, or I met my wife on the streetcar, that kind of stuff. And
I met your wife on the streetcar.
So it's typically Toronto. The Toronto streetcars are unique, and Toronto's a big city, and so it can resonate with a lot of people.
And it's a depiction of the city without it being everything painted. It's almost like looking through a rainy window feeling. You just have there's a nice looseness, yet there's structures there to, you still feel a sense of the city and the movement of the car. If you painted the detail of the car precisely, it's static. It doesn't move.
No.
And I think I really encourage people. The loose brush really helps. Wet pavement. I love painting wet pavement. It's complicated. The grays that you need to give that feeling of that. But Murray, it's been great. I think we've had a great little conversation. I love what you're doing. We're way too short. Maybe we'll have to come back again and see what you've been doing again somewhere in the future here.
It was cool, very cool. I, of course, like number 6, which was the painting of when he was in the Holy Land. Of course, that was that and the big ships. But I do have I have 2 questions for you. One, since you like to paint big red things, are you painting Santa Claus this year?
No.
So I figured if you like red, there's some reindeers.
I could do a portrait of Santa Claus. Yeah, that would.
Well, I figured you got Rudolph. He's got the red nose, and you got the sleigh, and you got the jolly guy. You have to be politically correct person. And there you go. And then the real question I have though is on pricing. So if someone wants to buy one of your originals, what do they go for from X to Z?
The small ones I start out around something 6 by 8 inches. I'll sell for $150, $200.
Okay.
And then 12, 16, about 350, and anything 24 by 36, usually around $1,200, $1,500. So,
okay, there you go.
Around $1.50, $2 a square inch.
All right.
That seems to be the sweet spot for most artists in Canada.
Okay.
There you go. Very reasonable. Very, very.
Yeah, I think they're reasonable. And if I put the prices up, I'll just have more paintings in my basement. So
We do have inventory a lot of times.
yeah,
Artists have
we
inventory.
do.
And,
Well, the good thing is now they can see it here, and if they like something, we'll have your website below. They can
Yeah,
reach
they do.
out
Yeah.
and email you and say, "Hey, I want to buy a piece of art," and there you go. Or something big and red. It could
Big
just
and
be a
red.
ball. There you go. It could just be a big
well,
ball.
with Santa Claus, there's probably one on every corner, so you probably have lots.
Yeah, I wouldn't have far to go here. No.
Yeah, you get for that. Or if someone could commission just to paint a big red ball.
Yeah.
Just think, there you go. That's a big red. He likes painting red. Big red ball on like a field.
Yeah.
That would just be cool. There
Yeah,
you go.
now we're looking. Now it's starting to sound Dali-ish, So
Yeah, right. You have to have the limp watch somewhere and a tree
Yeah.
that's fading in the background. And yes, it would be something like
watch.
that. So
There you go.
the limp watch, yes, one of these famous folks. Well, Murray, thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you for showing up and doing this. And to all our fans, or a fan, depending on who you're talking to, happy holidays.
Thank
So
you.
enjoy the holidays and the new year. This is it for Canadian art today for 2025.
Okay.
We won't see everybody till next year.
Happy New Year, and
Yep.
we will be back in January,
Yes.
and encourage people to look at Murray's stuff and reach out to Murray if you
Okay.
see something you like.
Reach out and touch somebody, but not in the Catholic way. Don't do that. But you'll just reach out and touch and get Murray. And once again, his site will be below. If you can't figure it out, reach out to the show, reach out to Paul, and we'll get you in touch with him. Murray, it was a pleasure. Happy and healthy to you, Paul, as always. We'll see everybody next year. Bye,
Okay.
everybody.
Bye now.
Bye. Take care.